The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. You are comfortably zoned with me, the Zig Zag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, across the moat from Oakland, and spring has sprung in Northern California. On opening day, Jerry Feitelberg joins me. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. It's a beautiful day, especially in Alameda. It's probably a few degrees cooler than here down on the peninsula, but it's gorgeous. And unfortunately, the A's are not playing at the Coliseum this afternoon. They're opening tonight at 7 o'clock Pacific time. If you recall, during the playoffs, the ball flew out of the park during the daytime when it's nice warm weather. So we'll see what happens when it's cooled down. It becomes a real pitcher's park at that time.
Yeah, and maybe we could have a real game that doesn't go extra innings like what happened in New York with the Yankees in Toronto. Toronto goes extra innings. Toronto scores in the 10th inning. And that's not what bothers me so much. I wanted the Yankees to win. I'm a Yankee fan in the American League, as it turns out. But what bothers me is the new disgusting rule where they put, when in extra innings, they start out by putting a runner on second base. And
yeah, I agree with you. It's disgusting. It's not baseball.
It isn't baseball, and it just absolutely ruined the day for me. I was listening on the radio, and it was like Little League. Like, why do they want the game to end? It just craziness. But that's the way of the new way of going, and I think that's going to be a permanent rule. That's my guess. So I just got to live with it. Also, what on your behalf and on behalf of all the A's fans who have seen this happen year after year, I noted that in the strongest lineup in baseball right now, which is Toronto, the way I look at it, the shortstop is Simeon. And
they got a lot of talent on that Toronto team. It's their pitching that will do them in. If they get any sort of rotation and they get a bullpen, they're going to be formidable. They could surprise everybody.
Yeah. I know the A's replaced him with a terrific shortstop, maybe a little over the hill, but he's definitely worthy. But from the fan standpoint, if you got to watch Simeon develop in the last 4 years into one of the best shortstops in the American League, and then lose him to, what was it, free agency? They just let him go? Or what was the story on him?
Yeah, they let him go. They didn't even make a qualifying offer, which would have paid him $18 million. And that's what he signed with Toronto for, I think, 2 years, $18 million a year. Simeon, I think, is 31 years old. He came in third in the MVP voting in 2019. He was a terrific leadoff hitter. He didn't do as well last year, but, it was a truncated season. So a lot of times it takes a player a couple of months to get rolling, and all they had was August and September. So, and had it been a full season, he may have gotten hot. Who knows? But players don't do well for sometimes. They can slump for a couple of months before they get into the swing of thing. And it was a shame because if you recall when Simeon came here, he was not a good fielder. He made a lot of errors, and they said, oh, my God, we traded away this guy to get him, and he's getting booed for throwing the ball away or not fielding it properly. And then Ron Washington came on board, worked with him, and made him an all-star shortstop.
Yeah. Washington is a strange case. He managed in Texas for a while after helping Chavez win 6 Gold Gloves. Chavez showed his appreciation by actually giving him one and having it replaced. I think it was one of the hurricanes that got him in Louisiana.
Yeah, he lost it in Hurricane Katrina, that monster storm.
Right, I remember that. And baseball, Chavez and the A's all chipped in. They got him in a replacement model, and he came back to, as you say, he came back to the A's after failing as the Texas manager. And oftentimes that happens. It's the Peter principle. Someone does.
I'm going to disagree with you. He went to the World Series twice in 2010 and 2011. He didn't win the World Series, and they came close in 2011. They were leading 3-2 over the Cardinals, but the Cardinals won the last 2 games. So I think taking your team to a World Series 2 years in a row is pretty successful. I wouldn't say he was a failure.
Well,
totally.
Not that he was a failure. He just got fired, needed a job.
Well, that happens in baseball.
And whether or not you're a success is very subjective. In other words, did they think they could have gone further, won it all without Washington, with someone else as a replacement?
We don't know. We just don't know.
Anyway, let me interrupt a second. How are you? We're in the midst of a coronavirus, and it seems you're a pharmacist by trade. It seems that we have a handle on it. Do you agree, or are we still getting ahead of ourselves? And because a lot of these states are opening up, and the variant isn't being considered, do you think there will be another pandemic?
Another surge? It's very possible.
Another surge.
Yes, we are getting a handle on it, especially in the Bay Area. The people in the Bay Area have been very good, wearing masks, getting shots, social distancing, and as a result, the number of cases have gone down dramatically in the Bay Area and California. The problem that we have is that, as you mentioned, that the people in other states still are not taking this thing seriously. They have in South Dakota, they had no mask mandate. In Florida, they had no mask mandate, and you're seeing increases in the number of cases in the country. We have maybe about 30 or 33% of the people in the United States have had at least one shot. Today in California, they opened it up to anyone anyone can get a virus shot, and the demand was huge. The problem is getting enough vaccine for everybody. The number of cases nationally had leveled off. It had dropped from 200,000 a day down to about 50,000 a day. Now it's creeping up as people are opening up. People are going into bars. They're not wearing masks. There are some people still screaming that a mask mandate takes away their liberty. But I've said many times, you have no liberty. You have no freedom. You have nothing when you're dead. So, and of course, you can spread it to your loved ones, and they can die. And it's a very, very serious problem. And I don't understand why people are fighting it. There are people who won't get vaccines. There are people who won't wear their masks. But they can infect other people, and they're a danger to society.
And there are people who have had their vaccines and don't wear their masks, and they don't realize that even though you've had the vaccine, you can still become infected. You won't get sick yourself, but it's very possible that you could pass it on to someone who isn't sick or hasn't been sick, doesn't have antibodies, hasn't had the shot, and you could kill somebody by being simply inconsiderate. That's
Absolutely.
one thing I don't understand is man does not seem to give a good goddamn outside of his or her realm of safety. They just don't care for their fellow man. I see that, the trial we're watching now is indicative of that. I can't believe that human life doesn't matter to people. More people than I ever thought.
I agree with you. Man's inhumanity to man is well known. Persecution of people over the centuries, for years, we're well aware of that. The treatment of the blacks and the Native Americans in the United States and in America has been awful. And they're still not right, even though that we're more aware of them. You see what's going on in Georgia with Jim Crow laws. Biden said Jim Crow on steroids to suppress the vote. You and I both served in the military. Our purpose was to defend and protect the Constitution, and the right to vote is sacred. And to take it away from people is obscene.
Georgia makes it a misdemeanor to help people by providing snacks, drinks, substance to people standing on line to vote. Not only won't they do it, but charge them with the crime if you try to help somebody. Unbelievable. And this is the same Georgia that saved our ass, basically, by electing those two senators. And
right. And they're basing this whole thing on a total fabrication, a total lie, that the election was stolen, that there was fraud. They asked the Secretary of State in Georgia, was there any fraud? No. Ask the people who are at the federal government, at the Department of Homeland Security, was there any fraud? No. It was a free and fair election in all 50 states.
Ask the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided it, and they still fight that craziness. And fighting it did nothing but increase the money in Trump's pocket that he was able to raise while putting on this idea that he's still the president, that he wasn't elected, he wasn't defeated, that the whole thing is crazy. I simply don't know. Could you have ever imagined something like that happening in this country?
Never in my lifetime. Although my brother, I think I told you, my late brother, used to tell me many times, if we don't keep our guard up, it could happen here. Totalitarianism could happen here. So we have to be very, very watchful of what's going on. We have to make sure that everybody has rights. And that's why a lot of people in the Jewish communities were big supporters of the civil rights movement, and still are today, because they know that when it's better for everybody, it's better for the Jewish people too. And after
maybe you can help clear something up to the audience. There's a big rift, it seems, not only between blacks and Asians, which is running rampant in this country, but between the Jews and the blacks. We've known this for a long time. What's the history of that? Because I know the Jews sat on the board of directors of the original NAACP. They financed the original NAACP. And was it the Black Muslim era? What caused the rift between Jews and blacks?
You bring up an interesting point. Yes, you're correct. The early history of the NAACP and all the different organizations trying to represent the black community to get rights was supported by Jewish people, and Jewish people donated their time. those people knew that if in this country, if there were not black people, the hate would be directed at the Jewish people. So they knew that if we could get equality for the black people and make things better for them, it would be better for us. And so that's why we want tolerance. We want to, you know, we have a different religion. We think differently. There's Catholicism, there's Protestantism, there's Jewish now, there's Islam in this country. And we, you know, America, in order to make it work, we can't have divisiveness and hate all over the place. You know, in the South, many, many years ago, the KKK directed their hate at blacks, Catholics, and Jews. And now they probably include the Islam on their list. And they're very, very dangerous, and they're very, very hateful. And hate is taught, and they teach because kids, you black kids, Jewish kids, Christian kids, you all play together. You don't know the difference until you get older. Hate is taught. And so the thing that the Jews
has to be taught. You're not born prejudiced. You're not born hateful. It has to be taught.
Right.
So
exactly. And you know, we saw that in World War II, 6 million Jewish people were murdered, and here it is. It's been 75 years since the end of World War II. A lot of people don't even know about the Holocaust. It has to be taught to people to remind them of what went on, so it won't happen again. And you know, it happens in other countries. In Rwanda, in 1994, you know, they had the slaughter of two groups there. They have what happens in Nigeria. They have these groups that are slaughtered. If you're Islam or Christian, they slaughter each other. So it still exists, and probably will exist way after you and I have gone to the great baseball stadium in the sky.
Wherever we're going. It could be up, it could be down, who knows? Let's just keep a bag packed and hope not to have to use it for a long time.
For sure.
All right.
The most important thing to get out of this is wear a mask, get your shots, stay vigilant, social distancing, and even though you've been vaccinated, stay safe, use common sense, and do what you have to do. Otherwise, you still could spread this thing around. And you have to remember, if there are no more hosts, it dies. There's no place for the virus to go, and it can't mutate. And fortunately, they're saying that the mutations, like the South African mutation, the vaccine from Pfizer and the other companies are quite effective against that too. Builds antibodies, so it's being good. The real question is, how long does the immunity last? You know, with flu vaccine, you have to get a shot every year. You know, this might be a little bit different. Might last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. We won't know until time passes how long this is going to be. But we may need a booster. We don't know yet, but we'll find that out as time goes on.
Right, and we have to be flexible too, and realize that this is all based on human beings. In Baltimore, Johnson & Johnson lost like 150,000 doses of the vaccine because of a simple human error. That's all it was. It was nothing. There was nothing that was dubious or, you know.
Yeah, there's nothing sinister going on.
Sinister. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah. So it's going along great from day to day, but we have to be prepared to hunker down once again. And if it does continue to spread, the Mets in Washington today, as an example, reportedly 5 players or personnel of Washington have come down with coronavirus.
They tested. I didn't hear that. They tested positive. So was that game postponed or played?
It was. The Mets were postponed, and because of the rules, they've got to wait another day, yet another day. They can't make it up tomorrow. They'll be playing their first game on Saturday.
Yeah, I saw that the Red Sox game was canceled, but I think because of weather. And then one of the PR people played a prank because today's April Fool's Day. Said, well, the rest of the season's been canceled too. What?
Just might happen. Tell me about the first opening day you remember as a kid.
Oh my goodness. We used to couldn't wait to opening day. And of course in those days when they had the 154 game schedule, when there were only 16 teams in Major League Baseball, they usually opened up around April 15th. And we wait to April 15th. And but you never knew up in New England it could snow. We had snow in May one year, and the game got snowed out. And it could be warm, could be rainy. They had lots of postponements in those days. And in those days, they played double headers, and they didn't play 7-inning games. They played 9-inning games, and if they went to extra innings, they played it the right way. But I think in the around 1949, 1950, somewhere in there, is when I became aware of opening day and looked forward to it. And then when I was on the A's medical staff, I absolutely adored going to the game. The players would all get haircuts. Everything was spit and polished. Their uniforms were clean. Their shoes were all sparkling clean. Everything was ready. They were chomping at the bit. They go out in the field and get introduced. And it's really nice. And you'd have a flyover, the Star Spangled Banner, and some explosives would go on. And then we'd have a couple jets fly over the stadium. It was very, very impressive, and I always look forward to it. But the last 2 years, because of COVID, I haven't been able to go.
Who was your first hero as a Red Sox when you were a kid?
Oh, Ted Williams, of course. Ted Williams.
Okay.
Yeah, and of course they had guys like Vern Stevens, who was the shortstop. They had Big Walt Dropo was the first baseman. I think he came up in 1950. They had Dom DiMaggio. Later they had Jackie Jensen in right field. They had Jimmy Pearsall in center field. I saw
Johnny Pesky, I think, was still there when you were young.
He played third base when they acquired Brown, Stevens from the St. Louis Browns. They got some pretty good players off the St. Louis Browns. They got Vern Stevens, they got Jack Kramer, and then they got Ellis Kinder, and they all did well with the Red Sox back in those days.
Who the Red Sox did a lot of dealing with was with Washington.
Yeah.
Joe Cronin and Yawkey were obviously very tight. And can you hit upon, I'm going from here to there, but with the Red Sox, what comes to mind about the 50s and the Boston Red Sox was how long it took them for the first black player to play. He was Pumpsy Green. He was kind of a utility infielder. And this was as late as 1959, 12 years after Jackie Robinson and 11 years and 354 days after Larry Doby. So there was no excuse league to league. Both leagues were integrated, and the irony is that the blacks took over in terms of individual accomplishments and led the teams like the Giants, the Dodgers, the Cleveland Indians to great success. And yet Yawkey and the Boston Red Sox were very remiss. I understand that Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays at one time or another tried out for the Red Sox. They had them, and guys like Pinky Higgins, what a name, right?
Higgins was a big racist, by the way.
Right, as was Joe Cronin, reputedly, and more importantly, as was Yawkey. And
Yawkey was from South Carolina. His uncle was a part owner or owned the Detroit Tigers many, many years ago. And he made his fortune in lumber and whatever else that they had. I think Yawkey had an office in New York, but he was a Southerner by birth. Ted Williams, the great Ted Williams. Ted Williams was a big supporter of integrating Major League Baseball. He thought it was a crime that people like Josh Gibson, people like Satchel Paige, all the great talent that they had in the Negro Leagues could not compete against the white guys. He saw how good they were, and he knew that they deserved to be in the big leagues, but it didn't happen with the Red Sox. In 1945, you mentioned Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson, Sam Jeffro, and one other player had a tryout with the Red Sox. The Red Sox could have signed Robinson. He didn't sign with the Dodgers, and he went to Montreal in 1946 and then came up in 1947. They had every opportunity to sign him, and they had the opportunity to sign Willie Mays, and they passed. And they just made horrible mistakes because they didn't want black players on his team. And if you go back, to the commissioner, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, it was pressure back in the 20s and 30s for blacks to be allowed into baseball. Landis said no. He too was a racist. But you never hear about that. They don't tell that story. There's a great Cuban ball player who never got a chance to play in the big leagues. His name was Martin Dihigo. And Dihigo was everything from Cuba. I think Louis Tion's father was a great pitcher in Cuba. Never got a chance to play in the big leagues. But if you were
other Cubans with lighter complexions did get a chance to play.
Yes, that's the truth. If you were white or light complexion,
just goes to show you how crazy it all is.
And it's still, and racism is still going on today, and we see it in Georgia, and we see it in Texas, and we see it in all these states that are going to make the voting laws more difficult for people to vote. It's an abomination. What they're doing is, in my mind, a violation of the Constitution.
Oh yeah, if nothing more than human rights, a violation of simple human rights.
Exactly.
And, it's crazy. Quick rundown on how you think the A's are going to do this year, Jerry, because we're up against it time-wise.
The A's are going to do very, very well. They have a very solid team. They've got an all-star at third base in Matt Chapman. They've got Matt Olson, who looks like he's going to get his stroke back. They got Anderson, Jed Lowry.
Jed Lowry back from his 3 games in 3 years with the Mets.
Yeah, and it looks like he can still rake. He had a great season in 2018. He had 23 homers, 99 ribbies, and now he's back and he's healthy, and his range in the field is diminished, but with the shift and he knows how to play and shade players, he was okay defensively, so he'll be there. And they got Mitch Moreland as their DH from the left side. They've got and Lowry's a switch hitter, so when Moreland eats up righties, And so when a lefty's pitching, Lowry can DH, or he can play second, or they have a lot of flexibility with Chad Pinder. They can move him around. They have out in the outfield, they're starting Mark Canha in left field. He's going to be the leadoff hitter. He's a solid ball player. He had 2 years ago, he had 25 homers, I think. One of your favorites, Ramon Laureano, will be in center field, and he's got a lot of pop in his bat. And we're hoping that Stephen Piscotty can stay healthy all season. They've got a Rule 5 player, Kai Tom, who impressed them, and he can play probably any of the three positions in the outfield. Sean Murphy had a good rookie season last year in the 60 games, showed a lot of pop in his bat too. Their pitching rotation, they got 5 or 6 starters that they can use, and their bullpen is solid with Trevor Rosenthal as the closer. You've got Trevino, you've got a couple lefties, Diekman and Klokar. You've got, they're just solid. They brought in Sergio Romo.
How about catching?
Well, catching is Sean Murphy, and then they got Aramis Garcia, and they like him. And they got this young fella down, and he's 19 or 20 years old, Soderstrom, and they're very high on him. So if Garcia doesn't pan out as the backup, they could bring him up to get some experience. So I think they're going to be okay in catching too.
Okay. Hey, Jerry, terrific podcast as usual. What can I tell you? You're an anchor.
Now, and the most important question of the day is, have you gotten your shots?
I haven't, but that's the second most important question, because my 2 roommates, my lover, Tally, all got both shots. Her sister, who lives in the bottom half of the Victorian, she got both shots. And all I'm waiting for is Johnson & Johnson, 1 shot, and I'm done. And I'm curious, you have your ears and eyes open to what's going on vaccination-wise in Alameda. How close is Johnson & Johnson coming to being available in Alameda in the northern part of the state?
From what I understand, J&J is going to be distributed at the Oakland Coliseum starting today.
Really? Oh,
yep.
Wow. And if I'm not mistaken, everybody over 18 can qualify to get it.
Absolutely.
Now,
over 18, I think that's right. Over 16, maybe.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So it looks like we dodged another bullet on one level or another, and this nightmare may indeed be coming to an end.
Hopefully. Isla and I had our first dinner or first lunch at sit-in at a restaurant last week. Social distancing, you wear the mask, when food comes, then you have it. As soon as you're done, you mask up and go out. But everyone had their shots.
Beautiful.
4 of us had their shots. Yeah. So that was the first one, and the restaurants are starting to do business. A lot of them have outside dining, and I think as they go into the orange tier or whatever tier they're in, they can allow more people into the restaurant. I think that in Southern California, they're saying that the Dodgers and the Angels are able to have 33% of their stadium full, as opposed to 25%. The A's can have up to about 12,500 people tonight. So that, it's not what they normally get on opening night, but it's better than 0.
Are you attending yourself?
Nope.
Okay.
The press box is still closed to the writers. They only allow a certain amount of people into the press box. That's the broadcasters, and I don't know if the Astro broadcasters are going to be here. So when you figure in the TV and the radio broadcasters, it's a lot of people, the public address announcer, and all the technicians that go along with it.
Hey, and the official scores, like our friend Michael Duca.
Yeah, and I don't know if you ever met Arturo Santo Domingo. He does A's and Giants too, and so they're in the press box. The writers, they set up outside, and it gets cold at night, and I'm not in any hurry to go to a game. Then I'm not sitting up in the press box. I don't want to sit out in the cold all night.
I certainly don't blame you.
Yeah.
But we'll have day games before you know it.
Yes, there's another thing too that, and I don't think they've opened up the media lounge either for the media, and that became a social engagement. And I would usually have dinner with either Amaury P. Gonzalez, who is the Spanish language broadcaster for the A's, and who will be there tonight because he has a nice booth upstairs in the press box. And
right.
I used to have dinner with Joe Salvatore, who worked for KCBS, and he did the sports reports on the weekends. And occasionally I'd have dinner with Ray Fosse or some of the other broadcasters, and it became a very social thing. And Amaury's partner, Manolo, would join us. And we would talk baseball. What else would you do at a ballpark? You talk baseball with the experts.
That's right. And they talk baseball with you, an expert. Yeah. So it makes it nice. Jerry, thank you for being my friend. Thank you for blessing Comfortably Zoned for all these many years. It's been 4 years now. So
yeah, and I will be in Alameda next Wednesday. It's we're going to celebrate my younger daughter's birthday, and I'm going to see a physician, see a doctor on Wednesday. Nothing serious. It's a podiatrist, and do some paperwork, and then have a nice birthday party with my two daughters and the son-in-laws. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's heartwarming, Jerry.
Yeah,
happy opening day.
And remember, get your shots. Everybody, almost everybody's got their shots.
And wear your mask and social distance until it's all. Let's not put the cart before the horse and really be set back, because we can wait a few months. In a few months, Biden says that on July 4th we should be picnicking with each other, and that would be nice. It's been a long time.
Yeah, he's very optimistic. I'm hoping that things will get back to normal probably in 2022. It's going to be a while before we get everybody to get on board with vaccines and masks, and we may have to continue it even further than to the end of 2022. Who knows? Why don't
you do me one favor and explain herd immunity and how that can help get us out of this?
Yeah, well, when you have 70 or 80% of the people, when people get infected, if we get vaccinated, we develop the antibodies. So if 70% of the people have antibodies, and the other 30% become infected, they develop antibodies, but they can't. It's not going to spread to you. It's going to spread to you. If it spreads to you, we know it's going to be. You're not going to have it as bad. You're not going to end up in the hospital. You can be asymptomatic and have it, but there's no place for the virus to go. If everybody develops antibodies, they can't infect anybody.
But isn't the big qualifier 70% of the folks have got to be vaccinated?
Yeah, at least.
Okay. How close are we to that? If there was a stat put out today, approximately what percentage of folks have already been vaccinated?
I think over 30% have been vaccinated, have at least had one shot. About 33%, over 100. Well, about 100 million, 110 million shots been given. So we have to get to, if you get to 300 million, That's 90% of the people. That would be wonderful. That still leaves 30 million people that can be infected, but of that 30 million people, maybe 10 million have been infected and have developed antibodies. So that would mean there'd be about 20 million that could be infected. But if they do get infected, they can't spread it to anybody beyond the 20 million people. Everybody else is immune.
Now, how dependent are we to the rest of the world being vaccinated?
Well, it's going to take a while to vaccinate 7 billion people.
Okay, so herd immunity can come and go. With that,
right. The problem is once people start traveling and they're going into other areas, you may have immunity.
Or people coming from other areas to here.
Right, exactly. So it's going to take a while to get everybody immunized. And, 330 million, that's a third of a billion. So that leaves, I think there's 8 billion people in the world. So that leaves 7.66 billion people that haven't been vaccinated. So you can see it's an immense challenge to get the whole world vaccinated. They will do it. They will do it. Remember, polio vaccine has virtually wiped out polio all over the world. Smallpox has been eradicated. So, it can be done, and it will be done, but it's going to take time.
Okay.
It's going to take time.
Thank you, Jerry, for your realism, your pragmatism, and like I say, your friendship means an awful lot to me, my friend.
Yeah, looking forward to our first burger at Nations, and hopefully it'll be sometime once you get your shot in the next couple months. How's that sound?
In the early summer, we will all be dining. We'll invite Michael Duca. Can't invite boy, I'm totally blanking. Nancy Finley. She moved to Texas.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
In Morgan Midway? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So our reunion will be a little with fewer people, but we'll have a reunion nonetheless, and it'll be nice to get you and Michael back together again.
Yeah, I don't think Nancy's going to like that hot heat and humidity down there, but so be it. Maybe Morgan got a job down there. Maybe her husband got a job down there.
I can understand why people move to Texas for more reasons than just the humidity. It's the humanity, so lack thereof.
My nephew lives in Houston, but he lives close to Rice University. And Houston, believe it or not, is one of the more liberal cities in Texas. Houston and Austin are the more liberal cities. And he lives close to Rice University, and they have a lot of programs. My nephew's a professor at the University of Houston, Clear Lake campus, and he and his wife enjoy those things. He's not crazy about the heat and humidity, but that's where his work is, so he's going to be there for a long time. Yeah.
Well,
it's huge. It's like L.A. spread out all over the place.
I know. And if you got to live anywhere, it's either Austin or Houston in terms of good liberal place to live. And that's not, that's not bad. And there are no taxes in Texas.
Yeah. They got to get the money from somewhere. Yeah, they got to get the money from somewhere to support
it. Sounds like a bit. No taxes in Texas? No, seriously, no taxes. No Texas.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Jerry, thank you again. I'll stop babbling. I'll close it out and invite you back in the very near future.
Yeah, we'll have some. The season will be moving along. We'll have stuff to talk about. See how it's shaping up, and especially how your Mets are doing. Can you imagine that? Just one last thing. They just signed, and you posted it on Facebook today, they signed Lindor to a $340 million contract, $34 million a year. Unbelievable.
I understand and how close they came to not signing him and to having him go through the free agent process, which would have been just a disaster. Because they gave up an awful lot for him.
Did they ever?
They gave up some good talent. So pieces could come together. You got to sign Conforto, and Thor is coming back. DeGrom is a Superman. Their success hinges on their bullpen, Diaz and Betances. Coming back to form, and that's always a question mark with bullpens.
My little doggy is telling me he's hungry, so I'm gonna go feed him.
Beautiful. I will close it out. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you for listening, everybody. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho, the weak link of it all. Adios and happy trails.
Bye-bye.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.